Yeah, okay. It's up.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Hi everyone. Thanks for attending this workshop today. So just a short introduction of ourselves. So my name is Heng Yao and this is Lucy. And we are both year 1 computer science students. Yeah. So what's in it for you for this workshop today? So this is an introduction to web security, and it involves offensive hands-on, and where you can try out attacks on the web application that we ask you all to download. Yeah. So so the vulnerable web app that we have asked you to download is an open source insecure web app called VWAP. So the aim of this workshop is to introduce guys to the common web vulnerabilities, and we will show you some of the attacks and also how to defend against them. Yeah, although this web app is written in PHP, web vulnerabilities scale across different languages. So it is important to understand the vulnerabilities in the context of a web app as compared to in the context of a language that is written for the web app itself. Yeah. So some ground rules for this workshop. So what you learn here should not be used on systems that you do not have permissions to attack. So Singapore law imposes very harsh penalties on those who break the law. So depending on the type of system that you break into, right, it can range up to $50,000 fine or even up to 20 years in jail. So for more information, you can go to Singapore statutes online to find out the actions that is protected by the law and what is not protected by the law. Okay, so this is the agenda for today's workshop. So hopefully all of you all have already set up VBox in your VirtualBox. Or minimally, you all should have downloaded VirtualBox and the zip file that says VBox. Yeah, so for the benefit of those who are not here and wants to watch the video that will be uploaded later, I will show you guys how to set up VBox through VirtualBox also. Yeah. So I also do a brief recap on the web concept, as this will be very important in understanding the vulnerabilities later. Yeah, the main part of the workshop is focus on the common web vulnerabilities, and we'll show like what are some common vulnerabilities, some of the examples that can breach these vulnerabilities, and also how to defend against these vulnerabilities. Yeah, so these are the two software that you'll need. So I'll just do a quick run through of how you set up this software in your VirtualBox. Yeah, so when you run VirtualBox, right, you will see this window and press new and name it something that that you want it to be. But in this case, we will just name it VWAP. This virtual machine is a Linux virtual machine, so you just choose Linux, and depending on your type of system you can choose either 64-bit or 32-bit. Yeah. So when you press next, depending on your system's RAM, you can choose whatever you want. I think 1 gig is enough, so we can just stick with the defaults. So when you're at this page, right, choose use an existing virtual hard disk file. So this will point, and you should point to the folder that you have downloaded the VBox in, and choose the first option. Yeah, when you open, right, and you can just press create, and this thing will be created. And you should press start, and the VirtualBox will just load all the files from VBox itself, and we'll just move on from there. So at this point, like, anyone has not set up the VirtualBox yet.
If you don't have any difficulties, just raise our hand.
Yeah, because we'll be showing the attacks on this platform later. So if you want to practice as we go through the workshop, then it's important to set this up. Yeah, so any problems so far? Okay, then we shall continue. Yeah, okay, so let me do some web concepts recap. So I believe a lot of people will be familiar with this protocol, but this protocol is the heart of clients connecting to the web servers. So by accessing web application and resources on the internet, you are actually utilizing the HTTP protocol in order to make this happen. So in order to make this happen, right, the HTTP uses a message-based model in which client sends a request message and the server returns a response message. Yeah, so this is an example of a HTTP request. So don't worry that it might look daunting at first, but it is simple to understand once we break it down. So yeah, the first line of the HTTP request consists of the HTTP method, followed by a space, and then the requested URL and the HTTP version. So what you see below are all the headers of HTTP requests, which tells us the different information pertaining to the client and also what he or she has requested from the server. Yeah, once the server has received a request message, it will return a response message, which is something like this. Yeah. So similar to the HTTP request, the first line shows the HTTP version and the status code, which indicates the results of the request. So like the request message, it contains different headers also, which shows the information of the server and also what it should return to the client. So in this case, the response message returns a HTML document. Okay, so URLs. So like we use this almost every day to access resources on the internet. And basically URLs the full name is called Uniform Resource Locator, and it's a unique identifier to retrieve a web resource. So I would like to bring our attention to the part highlighted in red, which is the query string of a URL. So what a query string is it is actually part of a URL that does not fit into the typical structure that commonly includes fields. Yeah. So just take note of this part because you'll be seeing this a lot later. Yeah. So there are different HTTP methods, and in this workshop we'll just focus on these two methods, which are the GET and the POST methods. So if you recall earlier, the example of the HTTP request that I showed you earlier uses the GET method. So the difference between these two methods is that the query string of the URL is sent in the URL for a GET request, whereas the query string is sent in the HTTP message body of a POST request. Yeah, so a POST request is more secure than a GET request because it is easy for anyone to alter the data of the GET parameters sent by the URL. So in this case, you will probably use POST for data transfer and GET requests for sharing of files and viewing of files to other users. Yeah. So at this point, is it okay so far? Okay, right? Okay. So moving on to cookies. So HTTP by itself is a stateless protocol, as in it does not maintain any user sessions or connections between the client and the server. So in order to persistent, what enables you to be kept logged into a website or maintain connections is the use of this. So building on top of what I've mentioned just now about the message-based model where the client sends a server returns a response message, right? So in this case, the set cookie response header is sent back to the client when the server returns a response message. And then the client will add the following header, tracking. And through this way, cookies are continued to be resubmitted back and forth from the client and the server in order to maintain a persistent user connection or session. So yeah, I'm sure most of you have been familiar with this term, which is the HTTPS protocol. HTTP by itself is not secure and can be intercepted by any attackers that is positioned in the network. So I mentioned just now that POST request is more secure than GET request, but then like an attacker could easily fake a POST request, so it is not entirely secure. So this HTTP S protocol is basically the HTTP protocol tunneled over the secure sockets layer, which is also known as SSL. Yeah, so in this way, it protects the privacy of the data passing over the network. And however, it's not foolproof from all web attacks. So it does not mean that you are connected to the website through HTTPS. That means you are fully secure, because it does not stop attacks that directly attack the server or the client component of the application. So which brings us to the main part of this workshop, which we will introduce the common web vulnerabilities that your application should at least prevent, because they are very common. Yeah. So today, yeah, we are going to look at most vulnerabilities in VWAP at the security level low or medium, because they have like no security measures put in place at all. Yeah. So the first vulnerability that we'll be covering is the SQL injection. So basically, it is an exploit that allows attackers to execute SQL statements. And the end goal is to just convince the SQL application, which is any database of your choice, to run a SQL string that was not premeditated. Yeah. So a typical web application that you might create in Orbital would have connections to database to retrieve data such as a list of users or any other information. So the SQL statement, right, is used to fetch data from the database. Yeah. So injections occur when the user input isn't sanitized properly, and it allows the attacker to change the database structure, the results, or the query that is supposed to run in order to fetch the data. Yeah. So has anyone not put up their VWAP VirtualBox yet? Okay, so I shall just continue. So the first example that we'll be going through is the SQL injection where the web application has poorly filtered strings. Yeah, so when you go to VirtualBox, right, and if you successfully loaded VWAP into VirtualBox, you'll see something like this. So in order to start the application, just double-click VWAP start. Yeah, and the credentials is B and PUB, so just follow accordingly. So if you get some like weird keyboard put, right, actually just you can just go systems, preference, and keyboard. And under layouts, just choose USA and remove this language. And then choose a keyboard model of your choice. In this example, we just use Apple. And can test out the settings here. So like, yeah, it's not buggy anymore. So yeah, so we'll log into this website first with bpub. And then the first example we'll be going through is let me see. Yeah, SQL injection login hero. So just try to hack this inside VWAP. Yeah, so has anyone not? Or you need some time, like you all can just voice out if you all need like some time to reach here. Okay, I'll just continue. So like this. Yeah. So like typically, if your web application has a login page, the test whether it's prone to SQL injection, right? This vulnerability will show you like how SQL injection can break the login page. So as you can see here, if you type anything that is not valid, it will say like invalid credentials, which is what your web application should do if it is not a valid user. So attacker might be mischievous and try something out of the norm. Just put I just end with a quote, right? You should see that you have an error in your web page, which is not good because you should not show errors to your users, because like this is a way that your application is buggy and they could try to attack it. So like what is wrong with this statement is that it shows like the error in which the code is vulnerable to. So actually, like in BWAP, the good thing is that the source code is made available to you. So we shall try to study like what went wrong in the source code and see like what makes this error pop up. So actually the file is at var wbwap. So change to this directory and then use your text editor vim and try to see the source code. Yeah. So as mentioned just now, the SQL statement would try to run the query and then return the result that the user wants. So in this case, we go to the source code that selects the SQL query, which is this sentence. Like, so like I'll try to bring you through and break down what this sentence means. Yeah. Oh, okay. You mean the source code?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you in this directory already? It's just vim. It's sql3.php.
It's in the URL.
Yeah. This thing, right? This thing is the terminal. So when you just click this, and you'll be shown a terminal. Yeah. And so let's. Anyone has any questions so far? Okay. Yeah. So let's try to break down the SQL statement that is in the source code. So we'll see that the SQL statement is in the source code is something like this. Yeah, so in PHP, right, the dot operator concatenates the left and right arguments. So this just for info. So it might differ in other programming language. But in this case, right, it just means that it concatenates the left and right arguments. And this thing, login and password, are the variables that the user entered in the login page just now. So so this thing is actually the input that the user entered, and this thing is the password input. Yeah. So like as you can see, the source code, right, has this SQL statement that retrieves the user and password from the database. So like from this SQL statement, right, just now we tried something which is a code that breaks this SQL statement. So like can someone give some comments as to how we can break this SQL statement to get what we want? Yeah, this thing has no security measures put in place. So like in a programming perspective, how would you break this statement? Okay, like where would you want to escape it? Like which part of the query? Because these two parts, right, are your user inputs. This is the login box and this is the password box. So you can enter anything you want here. So what are some things that you want to try inputting there? Like anyone can give suggestions. Okay, you mean at the login or password? Okay, so yeah, you all can feel free to throw suggestions. Then we can see like what happens from there. Now? Now? Is it now? Like at the login or password?
Something like the equal sign and like trying basically just to exploit such that the compiler will read your input as it's an output.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so I'll just show you one of the attacks that attackers can do in order to make this like something that it's favorable for them. So like as I mentioned just now, these are the two places that you can input stuff, right? So like as you can see, it is open by the open and close quotes, right? So what if the attacker like try to close this, and then he wants to comment out everything else that's after that? In PHP, you can just do it with this colon. Yeah. So like this doesn't do anything, right? Select star from heroes where login equals blank, nothing. So like you want it to return a true statement. So how do you do that? Okay, you can. Okay, so like the front part, it's false, right? Because like select star from heroes, like select star means select everything, and heroes is the database name. So select everything from the database where login equals blank. So this statement is false, right? Because like there's no such users with username blank. So this is false, or like what can you input here to make this true, whole thing true? Yeah, 1 equals 1. So like as you can see, this is the whole. This part is what the user can inject, right, into the login box. So if the user try to do something like this, I shall copy this into this login page, right? And I do something like this and log in, right? It says like, welcome, how are you today? So that like the user just log in into your page without having any credentials. So if we view the source code inside this PHP file, right? Yeah, so in this part, right, it returns the SQL statement that the user is just input, and right, then if there's such a login, right, that you will return like, welcome, your secret is something. But if it's not, then you will say it's like invalid credentials, which is what I showed you at the start. So in this way, this is an example of poorly filtered strings where the developer like allows people to inject code into the user variables, such that they can allow the database to return something like out of the norm. So this is one example. So I will bring you through the next example, which is union-based attack. So I will explain later what does union-based means. So right now, just go to SQL injection post search. Yeah. So in here, just go to this this part and press head. So okay, this is a layout of something like a system, something like a function that returns all the movie names in the database. So for example, if we try something like we want to search for anything, for example, man, you can see the application returns you all the entries with man and any input before and any input after. So it returns anything that has man in it. So so like just now I just show you what the source code in order to execute this SQL query. So what if you don't have the source code? So like the attacker, like in most cases, you won't leak your source code to anyone for them to see. So like in this case, from this information, right, like man and the information that's presented out in the page, right? So we just try to project what the application, what the SQL query might look like. So like we can see that there are different columns: title, release, character, genre, and IMDb. So like, you know that the SQL statements most likely look like in this structure. So we just try to construct a SQL statement that looks like this. So if we don't have the source code, then we just try to think what the code might look like in the PHP file. So it might look like just select title, release, character, genre, IMDb. So we don't know the database table name. So we just imagine it to be movies table, where title, like is an operator in my SQL database, which says like anything that's before that has the that has something like man in it. It will return anything that has man in it. So it's like the string is inside this database. So like so user input. Yeah, so this is what the SQL statement might look like, but we don't know for sure. But this is just what we imagine it to be from the results that is shown in this web page. Yeah, so like before, we can try a query breaking statement that shows an error for us. So for example, we can just type like has error shown to us, so that we know that this source code is vulnerable to SQL injection because like it shows like some error, and we can like play with the user input variables in order to inject this injection in. Yeah, so if not enough sanitization is put in place, right, the query can look something like this. Yeah, it could look something like this, which breaks the query statement. Yeah, so this is called error-based SQL injection, in which the source code leaks out an error code for you to tell you that somewhere in the code is vulnerable. Yeah. So coming back to union-based attacks, right? So union-based attacks, right? Actually, the union select operator allows you to view other database table that is in the web application